The story begins in a medieval realm known as Britannia. A peaceful countryside stretches beneath a cloud-dappled sky, wind swaying gently through vast green fields. At the center of this rustic world lies a bustling village, its modest stone buildings encircling a lively tavern known as the Boar Hat. The tavern is an odd-looking mobile structure mounted atop the back of a giant green pig, slowly trekking across the land. The quiet of the countryside is suddenly disturbed as a suit of rusted, old armor stumbles into the village and walks towards the tavern. Some flee, while others watch in hushed whispers, wondering if the ancient rumors are true. Inside the Boar Hat, a young man tends the bar with casual grace. He is short and appears youthful, with untamed blonde hair and a mischievous look. His movements are smooth and practiced as he polishes mugs and serves customers. He is the owner of the Boar Hat, a tavern that not only serves drinks but also travels between towns. He is not good at cooking, and he has a pig that loves to eat scraps. One day, the tavern is full of customers, and the owner serves them his best seller, the Boar Hat Meat Pie Special. As expected, the customers are disgusted by the taste and vomit up all the pie. They are new customers of the tavern since they are not aware of the taste of the pie that is now lying on the ground. The scraps are now all over the ground while the customers are pissed on what the owner serves to them, so the owner asks his pig to clean it up. The owner commands the pig named Hork to clean up the floor. The customers were amazed to see the pig walking towards the scraps and started cleaning the scraps of food, but Hork insisted that the owner let him eat more decent food, so the owner offered him a whole roast pig. Hork just happily answered that the food scraps are the best because he doesn't want to be roasted and be food. After Hork cleaned the scraps, the owner started to offer the customers the alcohol he had from different regions. The customers happily agreed to have of the alcohol. Meanwhile, the tavern owner listens silently to the villagers gossiping about a wandering rust knight who wears rusted armor, who is a ghost knight that has been appearing and disappearing. One of the customers insists that it might be one of the 7 deadly sins. The infamous criminals who once threatened the entire kingdom and plotted to overthrow the kingdom 10 years ago. The people recall their terrifying powers, each sin tied to deadly virtue gone awry. Although believed to be long gone or dead, the legends remain potent, like shadows lurking in the light. Even one of them hasn't been caught yet, and the wanted posters are renewed every year because the holy knights are trying to do everything they can. The customers are discussing that the Rust Knight might be one of the 7 deadly sins who is searching for his comrades. However, one of the customers asked the owner, who looked like a kid, on what he thought of it. The owner insists that he is not a kid, and his name is Meliodas. He added that he is not an employee or a kid, but the owner of the tavern. Everyone was surprised to hear what the owner said, and they were trying to think where they had heard the name Meliodas. The name sounds familiar to one of the drunk customers. But suddenly, the tavern's door opened, so Meliodas welcomed the person who entered the door. The one who enters the Boar Hat is the armored figure who suddenly shows up in the town. The owner asks who he is, but the armored knight just continues walking towards them. Its armor is large and weathered, its armored helmet has horns, and its hands have claws. Villagers panic at the sight, fearing it to be one of the legendary holy knights. The customers started to run and leave the tavern right after they saw the armor. Meliodas, as the owner of the tavern, stays and jumps over the counter to face the armored knight. Screams from the customer are heard outside the tavern asking for help. The armored knight stopped walking towards the bar counter, and Meliodas asked him again who he was, but the knight collapsed before answering, crashing through the tavern's floor and falling unconscious to the ground. The knight's helmet fell off when he slammed to the floor. The young tavern owner carefully approaches, lifting the helmet, and it reveals, shockingly, not a man, but a girl. She has long, flowing silver hair and delicate features, clearly exhausted and barely conscious. Meliodas started to think about what to do and remove the armor of the unconscious girl. The boy silently lifts her in his arms and brings her to rest, his expression subtly shifting from curiosity to concern. Meliodas started checking the girl and checked if it was definitely a woman. As she recovers and gains consciousness, the girl sat down and saw the boy. They looked at each other, and the girl asked what the owner was doing. Meliodas just answered that he's checking the girl's heartbeat. As she recovers, the tavern resumes business. The girl asked where she was and what had happened. Meliodas answered the girl that the girl is inside the room of Boar Hat, which is his shop. He also explained what happened and how the girl entered the tavern wearing the armor suit. However, her presence has already stirred unease, especially when whispers circulate that she may be searching for the fabled 7 deadly sins. The girl asks the tavern owner if he is a swordsman due to the sword on his back. The owner pulls the sword on his back. It's a hilt with a broken blade only. The girl started to scream due to fear, but shifted her mood as she heard the owner's explanation about why he had that sword on his back. The pig enters the room and explains to Meliodas that he feels sorry for the customer who paid for the food that Meliodas cooked. The girl rushes towards the talking pig of the tavern owner as she sees it. The girl hugged the pig because she had badly wanted one before. The pig's name is Hork, and he introduced himself to the girl. The owner asked the girl if she was hungry and offered the girl some of the pig. Hork got mad and insisted that he is not a food to eat, so Meliodas just offered the girl the food from the bar. The tavern owner started cooking food, and the girl asked how she could repay Meliodas for looking after her and giving her food to eat. Meliodas just replied to the girl to just eat the food, and since he knows that he is not good at cooking, he asks the girl if the food tastes horrible. The girl started to spoon some of the food and eat it. Meliodas was shocked that the girl started crying and appreciated the food due to the kindness of the tavern owner. While the girl is crying and eating, Meliodas asks her what she's doing inside the armor. The girl answered them that she was searching for the 7 deadly sins. Suddenly, a squad of holy knights arrives at the village. Tall, heavily armored, and imposing, they question the locals about the girl and the whereabouts of the armored knight seen entering the tavern. Suspicion mounts and tensions rise. They are the knights garrisoned at the base of the mountain who serve the holy knight. They come to capture the Rust Knight, who appears to be one of the 7 deadly sins. They started to knock on the door and asked to open up. Meliodas doesn't bother and thinks that they are just some noisy guys outside, but the girl is so scared, thinking that it might be the holy knights. The knights started to threaten them and asked to come out quietly. The knight thought that the person inside was scared. The knight madly insists that he will give the person inside 30 seconds and slam the door, but before they enter the tavern's door opens. The knight was surprised to see a kid, so he asked to show them the armor guys that they taught one of the 7 deadly sins. Meliodas reacts quickly. He explains that he is not a kid and is the owner of the tavern, then asks someone to come out. The knights were shocked when the owner called Hork, the talking pig, wearing the armor of the girl. The knights were confused on seeing Hork, the Rust Knight. Hork added that he is the leader of the knights in disposing of scraps of food. Meliodas offers the knight to have the pig if they like Hork. Out of anger, the knight lifted Meliodas, and while they were discussing and staring at each other, the girl had the chance to run. While the owner and his pig stall the holy knights, he quietly makes preparations for the girl to leave. She is frightened but determined. The young man does not ask questions, he simply helps her. The girl uses the back door of the tavern and rushes towards the forest hide, but the knight sees her, and they realize the truth, so they chase her. They realize that the woman is probably the Rust Knight. The knights follow the girl, their armor clanking, weapons ready, and carefully chasing the girl, thinking that the girl possesses considerable skills as a member of the 7 deadly sins. They are trying to exhaust the girl and drive her into a corner. The knight was more motivated to chase the girl, thinking that their reputation would rise once they caught one of the members of the sins. The pig, surprisingly agile for its size, picks up speed across the grassy plains. Hork charged at the knights and hit them with all his might to knock down some of them. The knights chasing the girl started running away, and Aleone, the leader of the knights, ran away too, but saw a cliff in front of him, so he stopped. However, Hork caught up to him and bumped into him, so Aleone fell down the cliff. Meliodas deftly handles the chase, leaping atop of the trees and effortlessly evading the knights. He quickly outran everyone and grabbed the girl so they could climb the tree because Hork is chasing the other knights for having twice as much amount of food as Meliodas as a reward. As Meliodas helps the girl, he asks the girl to continue the story on why the girl is trying to find the 7 deadly sins. They thought they had already outrun the knights, and the knights left them alone. The girl tells Meliodas that the reason she wants to gather the 7 deadly sins is to stop the holy knights. After the girl explained to Meliodas her reason, she asked Meliodas to forget about her, but she will never forget the debt he owes Meliodas, who saved and helped her many times. However, Hork questions the girl about stopping the Holy Knight, who the knights among the knights that protect Britannia. The girl answers Hork that one of the Holy Knights has enough power to match an entire country's army, and asked Hork, what if they decided to wage war against Britannia? The girl continues to explain that due to a coup d'etat orchestrated by the Holy Knights, the king was captured, and the kingdom has fallen into the hands of the Holy Knights. The girl added that the Holy Knights are forcibly recruiting people from the towns and villages surrounding the kingdom to train as soldiers. While the women and children are bringing the food, the elderly are the ones who construct the castle walls. The girl also mentioned that the Holy Knight doesn't have mercy for those people who oppose them. The girl insists that the Holy Knight's actions will befall the other region too, and Meliodas agreed that it sounds bad for the people of the kingdom. The girl added again that the only hope of the kingdom and the only thing that can stop the Holy Knights are the 7 deadly sins. Meliodas asks the girl if she knows what kind of person the 7 deadly sins are. The girl insists that her father told her a story that the 7 deadly sins were the strongest and cruelest order of knights in the kingdom, formed by the 7 brutal criminals who carved symbols of the 7 beasts into their bodies. The girl added that even though 10 years ago the 7 deadly sins were accused as criminals, the 7 sins were accused of plotting to overthrow the kingdom and disintegrated after the Holy Knights in the kingdom launched a general offensive against them. Meliodas, as one of the deadly sins, tries to disturb the girl's mind and says that the 7 deadly sins are criminals and are dead, but the girl kept on saying that they are not. She kept on saying how strong and righteous the 7 deadly sins are. The girl insisted that the Holy Knights are the ones who are actually making the people suffer, and after that, an earthquake occurred. The two were shocked. The cliff collapses as one of the knights uses his force and sword to slash it, that causing damage to it and making it fall. The girl and Meliodas fall together with the cliff. It's Twigo, a knight and comrade of the other knights, who chase Meliodas and others. He doesn't even think whether he attacks the correct target and doesn't care about others. The other knights are worrying for the other knight who fell to the cliff, but Twigo doesn't care and just asks if he hit the deadly sins member. However, Twigo was surprised to see Meliodas and the girl alive. Meliodas jumped above from the cliff before the ground fell. He also saved Alien, the other knight who fell earlier. But Twigo asked the other soldiers not to don't change the confirmed death toll because he will kill Meliodas and the other. Twigo was analyzing which of Meliodas and the girl was a member of the 7 deadly sins because neither of the two resembles any of the wanted posters. Since Twigo is ready to end all of them, Meliodas as the girl to run to the forest on his signal. Twigo saw the earring of the girl and felt that is lucky because it's the symbol of the royal family. He started walking towards Meliodas and the girl. Twigo confirmed that the girl who's with Meliodas is Princess Elizabeth of the kingdom. Meliodas was surprised to know that the girl he had just helped was the princess. All the knights in the kingdom receive an order to search for the princess. Twigo asked the princess if she will run because the knights are ordered to capture her, but it can't be helped if the princess dies in an accident. Meliodas signaled the princess to run, and they started running since the princess wouldn't allow herself to be captured. Elizabeth is determined to stop the holy knights and doesn't want to give up. Twigo started to attack since he had just realized that the princess was running. He swung his sword again. The power of his sword slashed the trees. Princess Elizabeth ran for her life and tried to dodge the attack because she didn't want to get captured by the knights. Half of the hill was cut down, and all the trees that were caught in the power of the slash released by Twigo flew to the sky together with the princess. As the princess opens her eyes, she is surprised that she was saved by Meliodas from an explosion of power for Twigo. However, Twigo did not stop there and walked towards Meliodas and Elizabeth while thinking about how he would report the death of the princess. Hork was so scared of the presence of Twigo that he jumped and ran away. Since the princess is so scared and doesn't want Meliodas to get killed, she decides to surrender herself and walks toward Twigo. However, Meliodas tries to stop Elizabeth from surrendering herself and tries to convince the princess not to give up. Twigo swung his sword again to attack the princess, and the princess was surprised by the knight's action, so Meliodas dashed to save the princess again. The ground was cut because of the attack by Twigo. The princess asked Meliodas to escape and make it out alive. However, Meliodas insists that they were going to kill either way. The evil knight Twigo started walking towards them again. Princess Elizabeth started to cry because she was so worried and trying to think about what she had experienced. She went on a journey finding the 7 deadly sins alone, even though she had never been on a journey before, and she tried to hide her identity by wearing armor and walking around until she was exhausted. She admires Meliodas, who is so kind to her even though they don't know each other. The princess asked the name of Meliodas because she had failed to ask him earlier. The princess is still crying, thinking that he was helped by someone who doesn't even know her. Meliodas introduced his true self to the princess. Meliodas, the dragon sin of wrath, that's my name. The princess can't believe that Meliodas looks like a child and is very different from the poster. She is with one of the members of the 7 deadly sins. The princess was shocked by the tattoo on the arm of Meliodas. It's a symbol of a beast, a dragon. The captain of the 7 deadly sins, the dragon sin of wrath, Meliodas. He protected Princess Elizabeth from Twigo, who swung his sword again. Twigo uses his power again to attack Meliodas and Princess Elizabeth, and a big explosion occurs as he swings his sword. He swung his sword like nothing, but it could cut through the ground and had destructive power. Meliodas suddenly pulls a sword not from his side but from his back, and he uses his sword to reflect back to Twigo the attack. Surprisingly, Twigo was the one who took the blow from his attack. He was so shocked that he was the one receiving the damage of the attack, even as the one who attacked. Twigo can't believe what's happening because he thinks that his sword finished Meliodas and the princess on the attack he unleashed. The princess was shocked to see that Meliodas showed that kind of power by just using the sword with a broken blade. Twigo madly approaches Meliodas, thinking that he is just fighting a child whom he can easily destroy. Twigo asks if the boy in front of him is planning to use the broken sword against him because, for Twigo, the sword is like trash. The princess, not far from them, still can't believe what the boy said to him, so she asks the young boy owner of the tavern if he is really Meliodas, the captain of the 7 deadly sins. Twigo is trying to remember the face of the young boy. He also can't believe to heard the name and asks the boy why the boy didn't look different from before. However, Meliodas didn't answer Twigo directly and just triggered Twigo more, asking Twigo if he recognizes Meliodas already. Out of anger, Twigo doesn't hesitate and attacks Meliodas because he doesn't want to believe what he has just realized about the boy in front of him. He gripped the handle of the sword to raise it above his head, saying that it can't be. Then Twigo swung his sword in full force and attacked Meliodas. As Twigo attacked Meliodas with all his might, Meliodas continued introducing himself while deflecting the attack with his broken sword using one hand. "I am Meliodas, the captain of the 7 deadly sins, the dragon's sin of wrath." Twigo was shocked to experience the true power of one of the 7 deadly sins. On that, Meliodas stops the night cold, unleashing a momentary flash of extraordinary power. The force of his strike cracks the earth and sends shockwaves into the sky. A big explosion occurred as Meliodas and Twigo exchanged blows. Twigo flew in the air and vanished as Meliodas hit him with a powerful attack. Meliodas put his sword back and smiled at Twigo. Princess Elizabeth is still amazed and walks towards Meliodas without saying anything. Hork approached Meliodas, who now agreed to join Princess Elizabeth in searching for the 7 deadly sins because he also had business with the other sins. Meliodas planned that they would gather information as they ran the bar and look for the other sins. However, Elizabeth is still stuck and not saying a thing, so Meliodas asks Elizabeth if she is coming. Princess Elizabeth happily agreed to what Meliodas offered her. As the dust clears, the knights are left stunned, realizing the truth. This unassuming boy isn't just a barkeeper. He is Meliodas, the dragon's sin of wrath, one of the 7 deadly sins himself. His power, once believed buried in the past, now stands before them once again. Twigo is knocked down, and the other knights are asking for reinforcement. But an earthquake occurs while the other knights are busy tending to Twigo's injury. Beneath the boar hat, the giant pig snorts and groans, roused for movement. As the tavern begins to shift, Meliodas grabs the princess, and they climb Mama, the giant pig. Meliodas stares calmly into the distance, the princess safe beside him. Her identity is now clear. She is Elizabeth, 3rd princess of Lyonesse. She has fled her kingdom in search of the 7 deadly sins, and in a twist of fate, has found the very one she was searching for. Their journey begins. Mama started to run away from the knights. The boar hat continues its slow journey across Britannia's rolling landscape, its massive pig carrier trudging through meadows and dirt paths. The tavern rocks gently with each step, while inside, a sense of quiet tension lingers. Elizabeth, now more rested, stands by the window, staring out at the horizon. Her silver hair catches the soft light, and though her face is calm, her eyes reflect the weight of her mission. She has found one of the 7 deadly sins, but her task has only just begun. Meliodas busies himself inside the tavern, cleaning and organizing supplies. His demeanor remains light and playful, but beneath the surface lies the quiet calculation of a seasoned warrior. Despite his youthful appearance, every movement he makes is precise. Elizabeth introduces herself as the third princess of the kingdom. While they are inside the tavern, Meliodas happily assigns the princess to become a waitress at Boar Hat. Then, as the owner, Meliodas asks the princess to change her clothes because the one that the princess wore was already tattered. Meliodas gave the princess the tavern's uniform, and Elizabeth changed her clothes. The princess was embarrassed by the clothes she was wearing, but it was the Boar Hat's uniform that Meliodas chose. As the owner, Meliodas checks the clothes to see if they fit the princess. Hork stops Meliodas from what he's doing because it makes the princess feel uncomfortable. Meliodas just insists that it's his duty as the owner. To change the mood, the princess tries to ask Meliodas about his sin and some information about the crime they committed. Princess Elizabeth asks Meliodas if he's a real villain, as everyone says, because the princess thinks that it's just a misunderstanding since Meliodas saved her, even though they don't know each other. However, the young tavern owner, Meliodas, didn't answer the princess straight and just made fun of her. Meliodas insists that 10 years ago, he roamed throughout Britannia stealing underwear and walking around doing silly stuff. The princess still doesn't believe Meliodas and is trying to convince Meliodas to tell the truth. The princess insists that Meliodas is just making fun of her. Then suddenly, the princess bumped into Meliodas because she lost her balance as Mama Pig stopped walking immediately. They are now above Mama, the big pig that has the boar hat above her. They are all wondering where they are and think that this might be the next area where they can get information. As they travel, they pass through another small village nestled within a mountain pass. The air is thicker here, humid and laced with the scent of wild herbs. Insects buzz and birds scatter as the tavern draws near. They reach the village of Bernia. Mama Pig goes down the hill and stays near the village as Meliodas, Elizabeth, and Hork travel towards a village to see if they can gather any information about the 7 deadly sins. Mama digs the ground and hides below, showing only the tavern. Meliodas mentioned that he comes to Bernia once every few years because he stocked the bar with alcohol from a lot of different regions. Meliodas added that Bernia ale is made with famous river water hailed as the best in Britannia since the grapes grow abundantly along the said river. However, as they passed the famous river of Bernia, it had dried up together with the herbs along the river and had also wilted. Out of nowhere, the princess shivers, so Meliodas is alarmed and checks out the princess, but the princess just insists that her heart is pounding a little. They enter the village, but they are surprised that a lot of people are gathered in the town square, so they think that there is a festival. Meliodas continues to walk towards the people who are busy with something, while the princess and Hork are so happy thinking that there's a festival. Some of the men in the village recognize Meliodas as the owner of the traveling bar that comes to their village every year. They insist that they don't have time for jokes and insist that there's no festival happening. Everyone who gathered in the town square is tired and angry. Meliodas, thinking that there's a festival, asked if it is the gathering of hot and sweaty geezers, but the men of the village insisted that they are trying to pull the sword. They are pulling in full force. They even join forces to pull the sword that the holy knight stuck into the ground. Meliodas curiously asked the town leader why the holy knight stuck his sword. They explained that the sword imbued with the magic sealed the underground water source because the holy knight gets mad at them. The villagers don't have water, so they are worried about the grout that helps their Bernia's ale to be delicious. As the villager mentioned holy knights, the princess remembered that it might be Twigo, the one they defeated yesterday, and maybe the reason why she had chills earlier. However, Meliodas insists that Twigo is not a real holy knight. He added that a real one is nothing like that, so the princess was speechless. The village leader explained to the princess that their village is finished because in order to pull the sword, they need the strength of a holy knight. The village leader added that they need the power of the holy night because all the men in their village are using their full strength, but the sword doesn't move even a little. While all the men in the village are still trying to pull the sword, a boy from nowhere shows up and boastfully says that he has a pal from the 7 deadly sins that will help them. Everyone was shocked, aside from Meliodas and Elizabeth, who were glad about what they heard. The boy struck a pose and added that there's no big deal about the Holy Knight's sword because his friend from the deadly sins will help them. As the villagers heard the boy mention the deadly sins, they all got mad and scared at the same time, since it might make the Holy Knights get angrier at them. The villagers keep blaming the boy for the Holy Knight's actions towards the village. They kept yelling at the boy. The villagers started throwing rocks at the boy and hitting him with anything they could throw. Rocks are flying towards the boy while the villagers are madly shouting to the boy that they are through with the boy's lies and jokes. The boy burst into cry and shouted that he hated the village, and the villagers shouted back that they hated the boy too. Due to kindness, Meliodas helps the boy escape and run while the boy is shouting back at the villagers. Even Meliodas got hit by the villagers. He helped the boy. While Meliodas and the boy escape, the village leader stops the villagers from throwing stuff. The village leaders also tell the princess that the boy is a good child, even though the villagers hate him. Hork and Princess Elizabeth were left in the village because Meliodas brought the boy to the tavern. Inside the tavern, Meliodas brings the boy to the tavern and shows it to the boy. He also offered the boy food in exchange for information and answers to some questions, but the boy insisted that he wanted food first. The boy is amazed because Meliodas looks like a child too, but Meliodas insists and asks if he truly has a friend from the 7 deadly sins. Meliodas finished cooking and served the food to the boy. The freshly cooked chicken looks delicious, but as usual, the food tastes nasty, so the boy threw up. Meliodas tries to ask a question again because the boy forgot the question that Meliodas was asking. Meliodas asked again about the other deadly sins while drinking his ale. However, the boy didn't pay attention to the question because he recognized the ale that Meliodas was drinking. He sniffed and described the specification of the ale, looked sad, and ignored Meliodas' question. The boy insisted to Meliodas that he is too young to drink the Bernia ale that he just described. The Bernia's ale of the village of Bernia tastes great with sweetness, richness, and fragrance of apples, so it's called the greatest ale ever. Meliodas and the boy continue to speak with each other, and suddenly the door opens. Elizabeth and Hork enter the tavern. They came back from the village. The princess heard from the village head that the boy is a big prankster, and the boy's name is Mead. She tells her experience to the boy, that when she was little, she pulled pranks on her father to get her father's attention. Mead didn't pay attention. The princess added that the king is not her real father. Upon hearing that, Meliodas and Mead started to listen. Princess Elizabeth continued her story. One day, she tries to climb the tree in their garden to pull a prank and surprise the king. The king yelled at him and climbed up the tree even though he had never climbed a tree in his life. The king was so determined to save the princess at that time, even though they were not blood related. As expected, the king couldn't climb up, so he fell and got hurt. The princess never forgot that moment because even though the king was not her real father, the king risked his life for Princess Elizabeth. The princess taught that the king would die at that moment, and she promised herself that she would not do that again. Mead heard the story of the princess and stunned. He realized some things. The boy started to tell a story about his life. A few years ago, they were travelers, and his father and mother were victims of an epidemic that happened when they stopped by Bernia. The boy is alone, but the villagers took him and raised him like their own child, so he was very happy. However, the boy didn't belong to any family, and he was so jealous of everyone who had their own families, so he always told lies and pulled pranks. Elizabeth, Hork, and Meliodas continue to listen, but the princess asks if the boy put the worm in the Holy Knight's drink because he's jealous and wants attention. However, the boy insists that Holy Knight is a bastard and made a fool out of them. Mead is so mad at how the Holy Knight treats the villagers. The Holy Knights did take all their taxes and their year's ale, which is the best that their village had ever made. The adults and even the kids of the villages put so much effort into making the best ale, and the knights just get what they want without thinking of the villagers. The Holy Knight tastes the ale with the worm and says that it's slightly better than the horse's urine. It causes the Holy Knight to get mad because he saw the worm in the ale. The villagers offer another glass of ale to the knight to taste the ale again. However, even the villagers ask for forgiveness. Due to madness, the Holy Knight pulls his sword and strikes the ground, a thunder release on his sword, and lighten the surrounding. When the sword sinks into the ground, half of the blade enters the ground. The boy finished the story about what happened, and confessed that he is not a friend of the 7 deadly sins, and she just lied about it due to his anger toward the Holy Knights. The boy mentioned that if the 7 deadly sins are the enemies of the evil Holy Knights, it means that they are the good ones. That's why the Holy Knights want to chase them. Hork and Elizabeth think that what the boy says is correct. Elizabeth was so happy hearing Mead think about the 7 deadly sins. However, while they trying to figure out what to do, a commotion occurred. They saw from the window that it's from the village, and Holy Knights are speaking with the villagers. All of them rushed towards the village. As they arrived at the village, they saw the 2 knights from the kingdom. They are delivering the news that they will increase the taxes on the village 10 times if the villagers fail to pull the sword out by sunset. The villagers panic at the news they heard. They can't believe the news from the 2 knights. It serves as their punishment for insulting the Holy Knight and claiming that they are friends with the villainous 7 deadly sins. The villagers complain that if they don't have any water, they won't be able to provide at least a single glass of ale. They are blaming Mead for what happened. However, the village head insists that it's not Mead's fault because the child just represents the elders' true feelings about what's happening. The Holy Knights insulted their pride as ale brewers, and it fired up the villagers. The villagers realized what the village head said. They decided to protect the village with their lives, so they got motivated. They call everyone to pull the sword out, no matter what happens. Everyone positioned themselves and grabbed a rope to knot it to the sword. Together, they pulled the sword with full force. Some of them are holding the hilt. All of them are men of the village who have a huge body, but the sword did move even a little. Not far from them are the 2 holy knights who keep on insulting and laughing at them while they just watch the villagers suffer. They even say that the ale is a cheap alcohol while they're drinking it for free. Everyone was shocked when they saw Mead position himself between the men pulling the sword and help in pulling it. Mead shouted that it's his fault, so he should be the one pulling the sword, and it's not everyone's fault, so they need to stay out of it. Even the men are trying to convince him to stay out of what they're doing. All of them decided to do it together with Mead, and it made Mead's motivation fire up. All of them help each other and try to pull the sword again, but they are running out of time because they only have until sunset. The 2 knights are still making fun of them, while the villagers are trying to do their best to pull the sword. Together, they pull it again. Everyone is motivated as Mead shows up. The villagers pull the sword together and give their everything, but still, the sword doesn't flinch even a little. They are all getting tired because even though they give their full strength, the sword is still intact. However, Meliodas is just watching everyone and observing from afar. He saw Mead giving everything just to pull the sword. Everyone is sweaty and tired pulling, but the sword still remains in its position. Meliodas walks towards the 2 knights who are laughing and making fun of the suffering of the villagers. He grabs the drinks of the 2 before they try to sip. He calmly says that the knights didn't deserve to drink the ale since they don't understand the taste of alcohol. The two knights were shocked and stunned. Mead and all the men in Bernia's village tried their best shots pulling the sword together, but the ropes wore off, and they just lost every ounce of energy they had. The sword is still where it is. The villagers are starting to lose hope as the rope on the hilt of the sword loosens from being knotted. All the men of the villagers are down on the floor. They are all exhausted and sweaty. Mead is about to collapse and sees Meliodas walking towards a sword, passing the lying bodies of the villagers on the ground. Meliodas started to drink the 2 Alesh while walking. Right after he finishes the 2 delicious Bernia's Alesh that he snatched from the 2 knights, he put them on a barrel. Meliodas reached the location of the sword and grabbed the hilt of the sword. Everyone was surprised and confused about what the young tavern owner was trying to do. Meliodas apologized to the villagers for drinking the 2 Alesh because he didn't have any money with him. Meliodas added that he would just help them with the sword. Then the young tavern owner smiled at them as he slowly pulled the sword. The young tavern owner, they thought, simply pulled the sword with no sweat. Meliodas pulled the sword and raised the sword with just one hand. Everyone was surprised and couldn't believe what they were seeing. A kid pulled the sword that only the holy knight can pull out and couldn't even be pulled with the combined force of the villagers. Elizabeth was too amazed by the strength of Meliodas as one of the 7 deadly sins. While the villagers are stunned by what they are seeing, the water comes out from the ground where the sword was pulled. The underground spring is back, so everyone is happy and celebrating. Everyone gathered in the town square to see and feel the water. However, Mead is still stunned and asks Meliodas if it's one of the 7 sins. Meliodas stops Mead from questioning him if he is one of the real members of the 7 deadly sins. He just pushes Mead to the middle of the town square. Mead left standing, saying nothing, and he was so embarrassed by the situation. The villagers are asking for forgiveness and feel sorry for what they did to Mead. Mead is still quiet. He was so embarrassed and couldn't look eye to eye with the villagers. Meliodas pushes Mead to go and accept the villagers who are asking for Mead's forgiveness. It causes Mead to run towards the villagers while crying because he can't lie to his heart that he badly loves the villagers who became his parents. The sadness in the eyes of Meliodas caught the attention of the princess. Princess Elizabeth tries to talk with Meliodas, but the villagers interrupt them as they happily celebrate the success of pulling the sword. Meliodas, the boar hat owner, is Bernia's savior. Little did they know that the tavern owner is the dragon sin of wrath, Meliodas, one of the legendary 7 deadly sins. While the villagers celebrate, on the other side of the country is Fort Sol Gales, one of the headquarters of the Holy Knights. The report from the soldiers stationed at Bernia village has already reached the Holy Knights, which is about 7 miles northwest of the village. The knights are shocked by the report, aside for Lord Gilthunder. The report is that an unidentified child pulled the sword out with magic power, and Bernia gets the water back. The villager continues the celebration inside the tavern known as the Boar Hat Bar. Everyone is drinking happily, eating, and chatting. The night is young, and the tavern is so loud. They begin toasting with their Bernia Alia, wishing for good fortune to the Bernia's savior, Mr. Meliodas, the dragon sin of wrath, and the Boar Hat Bar. He runs together with the Bernia's ale trade. While everyone is busy with their drinks, Princess Elizabeth is so embarrassed because that night is the first time she is a waitress in a tavern, and she doesn't know if she can do it. Her heart pounds, and Meliodas walks towards her, trying to help her since it's her first time. The sin of wrath, Meliodas, walks towards the princess and tries to give her advice that she would be fine if she got used to it. The princess is so nervous and at the same time excited for her new role. They agreed that the most important thing is to gather information about the other members of the deadly sins, even if the information is not directly related to the sins, because it can be a lead. Meliodas tries to calm the princess with his advice and asks the princess to take things easy. Everyone inside the tavern is busy with their drinks, and they are all happy, so Meliodas says to the princess to enjoy the night. Meliodas smiled gently to the princess, and it boosted Princess Elizabeth's confidence. The tavern is full of customers, celebrating the success of the village. There's a lot of chattering and shouting inside. Some of the customers are talking about how the river's water rose a lot because of the Holy Knight's sword that dammed up the water source. Some are talking about the youngster named Arthur, who became a king way down south in Camelot. Some are talking about their chicken laying 5 eggs at once. One is worried about her son who's stationed at Fort Solgales. The others are talking about the picture of the 7 deadly sins on the bulletin board and whether they haven't been caught. There's a lot of information and orders. One of them caught the attention of Meliodas. He asked what the age of the Gloucester wine that Meliodas is selling is. The princess was amazed and shocked, knowing the answer of Meliodas, because the owner has a 10 and 13-year-old Gloucester wine with him. The princess continued to go all over the tavern running errands. She runs around the tavern, getting all the orders from all the customers. The bar is so noisy due to their celebration. Different orders, different flavors, and different stories are what you can hear in the bar. The princess is doing her best to get all the favor and order. While she was doing her new role as a waitress, she heard some information that might lead them to another member of the 7 deadly sins. A man says that there's a place called White Dream Forest where all the hunters and even the holy knights avoid because it's very dangerous there. While listening, the princess forgot that she had work to do, so she continued getting orders and delivering the food to the tables. Meanwhile, in the headquarters of the Holy Knights, Gilthunder received the report from the soldiers. He is a holy knight who stuck his sword into the ground of the Bernia village and dammed the water source. He was shocked to hear the report that a child pulled out his sword, and due to fear, the soldier who reported it says that it might be an accident, and the soldiers saw it might be out of their minds. So, to convince the Holy Knight that it is an accident, he stands up and walks to the open space of the headquarters. Gilthunder asks about the direction and the distance of Bernia's village because he wants to see for himself if it was an accident or not. He commanded the soldiers to give him the exact distance and direction of the village. Out of a blue, a holy knight asks for directions to the village, so everyone is clueless, but they need to obey the holy knights. The soldiers are shocked and think that the holy knight will head out to the village, but they immediately provide the exact information needed by Gilthunder. The soldier says from this fort, it's 4 o'clock southeast and 7.3 miles away. Gilthunder borrows the soldier's spear and calculates the given information from the soldier. The soldier gave the holy knight his spear without any second thoughts. Gilthunder sees the angle as he calculates the distance and direction of the village. Everyone was surprised when he positioned to throw the spear and stretched his arm, then aimed for the village. Gilthunder changed his position and prepared himself to throw the spear. All the soldiers were shocked. He grabbed the spear fiercely, stepped his other foot backward, and looked in the direction of Bernia. Then the holy knight enveloped the spear with a magic power made of thunder. In a snap, a thunderbolt lights the room, and it's wrapping the spear. There is too much magic power, so the guards run away from Gilthunder. The holy knight Gilthunder moves his foot forward and throws to release the spear that was wrapped with thunder. A loud sound of thunder was heard in the headquarters. Gil Thunder, who has a huge magic power that creates thunder, throws the spear with full force. His attack lights the room, and the spear travels so fast in Bernia's direction. The spear, full of thunder magic power, flew above the sky, traveling like a missile towards the village of Bernia. While in the tavern, at the exact time Gil Thunder threw the spear, Meliodas was alarmed and felt the powerful magic. He doesn't want everyone to panic, so he just pretended that it's nothing. Even some of the customers asked her why he suddenly stopped for a second. While the princess, on the other hand, dropped the food again, even though she really tried to do her work very well. None of the customers are getting mad about what happened, but the princess kept on apologizing to them. Due to frustration, the princess ran outside crying while Hork ate the food on the floor and cleaned it. The princess continues asking for forgiveness to the customers, even though the customers are very happy since the princess is trying her best to help in the bar. The princess felt so frustrated with what was happening, she thought she was doing everything in the wrong way. The princess can't handle the stress because she is overthinking everything. Princess Elizabeth rushes to the door and leaves the tavern crying. Meliodas started walking towards the door because of the powerful magic he felt earlier. Hork thinks that Meliodas will try to comfort the princess, so Hork asked Meliodas if he would cheer up the princess. However, Meliodas walked towards the door to go outside and pretended that he just needed to pee. Hork just let Meliodas do his thing and attend to the customers' orders. Meliodas went outside, checking for the powerful magic he had sensed earlier, and he saw the princess sitting on the grass, crying. Meliodas just continued walking with the princess and kept looking for the powerful magic coming towards them. As Meliodas passed Elizabeth, the princess asked Meliodas if she was pretty useless in the tavern and fighting the holy knights, but Meliodas was not listening because he was busy looking for the magic power that might hit the village and the tavern. The princess continues to rant that she gets all the customers' orders wrong, breaks all the plates and cups, and does not get any useful information because what she gets is about the White Dream Forest. The princess heard a conversation about the forest that the holy knights went out of their way to avoid. However, Meliodas is still looking for the magic power and is just roaming outside the open field of grass. While the princess continues thinking that is useless even in getting any little information on where the holy knights are. When Meliodas heard Elizabeth trying to say something, that's the only time he noticed the princess, but the princess just continued pitying herself. The princess thought that what she was doing was laughable because she was such a useless waitress who wanted to protect the people of the country. Meliodas tries to cheer up the princess and tries to lighten the mood. He mentioned that when he just started the bar, it wasn't easy for him. He messed up with the stocks, and his food wasn't good, no matter how much he tried. However, the princess insists that he is not just an ordinary bar owner because Meliodas is one of the 7 deadly sins. So Meliodas replied to Elizabeth that she is a princess. The princess stopped and was silenced by what Meliodas said. The princess bows her head as she is not satisfied about it because he don't have any strength to fight the holy knights and protect the country and its people. The princess thinks that she can't do anything like Meliodas and the other. Meliodas looked at the princess and said that the princess had found him. The princess was shocked by what Meliodas said and felt lighter than earlier. Meliodas added that the princess found him due to her determination to protect the people. Even though the princess was barely able to walk, she tried to find the 7 deadly sins. The princess found the bar by herself, and if she hadn't had the courage, none of it would have started. The princess started to feel confident again. Meliodas added again that he thinks that he found a good waitress because no one yelled at her when she messed up, and everyone was smiling at her because she was trying, and which is the opposite of what Meliodas experienced. The princess became motivated by what she heard and promised that she would give her best shot. Princess Elizabeth realized that she had something to do, and she must do it. Meliodas just answered the princess that he had something to do as well. He raised and head to watch the upcoming thing towards them. Their conversation was interrupted when Meliodas changed the look on his face and stared at the incoming thing. The princess was shocked at what she saw. It was a bright thing from the sky going towards them. As the thing got closer, they noticed that it was a spear wrapped in a thunder-like magic power, and it looked so powerful that it could destroy the whole village. Meliodas stands tall and waits for it. The brave captain of the 7 deadly sins, Meliodas, faced the spear wrapped in thunder with his bare hands. As the spear reached him, he grabbed the lightning spear and tried to stop its power, but he was carried away by the force of it as he tightened his grip on it. Meliodas started to fly due to the power of the spear, but he tried to stop it and put his feet back on the ground. The spear keeps moving, and Meliodas is still trying to stop it. The ground where Meliodas was standing broke, and the princess was thrown to the ground too, as a huge explosion occurs and rubble is everywhere. Thankfully, the tavern was not damaged by that explosion because it's far on where Meliodas stopped it. However, even though Meliodas tried to stop it, the ground breaks, and he continues to fly. Meliodas flew towards the village due to the power of the spear. He is still holding the spear, and his sleeve is destroyed by the thunder wrapped around the spear. He flew together with the spear, and he bumped into the villagers' houses, and all those houses he hit were destroyed by the powerful magic and force. The village is still lucky because if Meliodas hadn't caught that spear, it could have destroyed the whole village. Back on the ground where Meliodas catches the spear is the princess who recovers from the explosion and checks for Meliodas, but she is too far on where Meliodas tries to stop the spear. The dragon's sin of wrath continues to bump against the houses and is still trying to stop the spear. Meliodas reached the ground as the direction of the spear started to go downward. He tightens his grip on the spear and tries to twist his body. Meliodas is not letting the spear go. He gripped the spear tightly than before. The houses of the villagers that he hit start to go down. However, Meliodas didn't give up and tried to stop it by just turning around his whole body while holding the spear with only one hand. As he stopped the spear and the force of the magic on it, he faced forward, the direction from which the spear came. The dust began to disappear, and Meliodas is still standing, holding the spear like it's nothing. The spear is still wrapped with electricity and thunder, and as Meliodas tightened his grip, the thunder started getting bigger and stronger. Meliodas raised his head above and looked in front of him. A powerful aura was released on Meliodas's body, and he aimed to the direction of a holy knight's headquarters where the spear came. He bends his body and prepares himself to throw. Meliodas throws back the spear, but is more powerful and stronger than earlier. The spear also travels faster than earlier, and in just a snap, it leaves the hands of Meliodas. The captain of the 7 deadly sins swings his arm like throwing a ball. In a spark, it was above the sky, and then left the Bernia's village. It reaches the headquarters of the Holy Knights in just a second. Everything on its way lights up because of the thunder and the power that was wrapping the spear. In Fort Sorgales, the soldiers from the headquarters are worrying about the spear and what will happen to Bernia. They thought that the village would be wiped off Britannia's maps. They don't know what the holy knight Gilthunder is thinking because he just threw the spear with thunder. The owner of the spear was surprised that his spear was in Bernia. The soldiers are not aware and will be surprised by the incoming spear. Inside the headquarters, Gilthunder is trying to command the captain to increase the supply of workers because there's a shortage of laborers in the kingdom. Suddenly, a powerful magic was sensed by Gilthunder, and it was more powerful than his. The spear that Meliodas throws is traveling the Bernia village back to Fort Sorgales in full speed and force. Gilthunder doesn't have much time to react or dodge it. He was shocked and terrified as the spear entered the headquarters and destroyed the whole Holy Knight's headquarters. Fort Sorgales collapsed in just the blink of an eye. All the soldiers panicked and ran for their lives. All of the soldiers were surprised and trying to look for the enemy that attacked them, and they thought that Gilthunder had been killed by that attack. The soldiers were shocked to hear Gilthunder out of nowhere that he knew the identity of a child who had been reported before that pulled his sword. Surprisingly, Gilthunder is safe and able to dodge the spear. He has a slight cut on his face due to the spear. The spear is still in the back of his chair, and he says that the child they taught is one of the 7 deadly sins. He confirmed that that kind of power is from one of the members of the sins, and that they are still alive. Gilthunder just smirked, thinking that one of the 7 sins is still alive. Back in Bernia, the sky started to darken again as the spear traveled towards Fort Sorgales. Meliodas is trying to fix his clothes because the sleeve of it was destroyed by the electricity from the spear, and Princess Elizabeth came to her and asked if the one who attacked them was the holy knights who attacked the village before. Meliodas just says that it would be better for everyone if they leave the village because it will be more dangerous if they stay there. The princess insists that the holy knight might target Bernia village again. Meliodas replied that it would be more dangerous if they stayed in Bernia, and the holy knights know that they won't stay in the village of Bernia forever. The princess added that they haven't gathered any information yet, forgetting that they already have a lead on where the next place they need to go to find the other sins. Meliodas asked the princess to go with him, since they already had the information on where they can find the other member of the 7 deadly sins. Meliodas just reminded the princess about what they must need to do, and there, Elizabeth regains her confidence again and is fired up to find more allies. Princess Elizabeth and Meliodas started to go back to the tavern again and get ready to travel and find the other 6 members of the 7 deadly sins. The journey to find the 7 deadly sins continues. Princess Elizabeth, Meliodas, and Hork enter the White Dream Forest. As usual, they left Mama alone outside the forest. It's been 3 hours since they entered the forest, but they haven't seen a single person or animal in the forest. The forest only contains trees and branches, and it is also covered with white thick fog. The 3 continue to walk inside the forest, and they are doubting if one of the deadly sins is inside the forest. Princess Elizabeth asks Meliodas if one of the sins is hiding in the White Dream Forest. Meliodas just answers probably, and the 3 of them continue entering the forest. Hork started to think that they were inside the forest for no reason, and that there were rumors about crazy monsters in the forest. Suddenly, Elizabeth shouted, so Meliodas was alerted and asked what had happened. However, Elizabeth was surprised that someone was touching her, but it was just Meliodas. The 3 just continue their journey. As they continue, they started analyzing the situation and clear their doubts about the Forest of White Dreams, because it is a perfect spot if you are hiding from a holy nights, is covered in fog all year long, so the travelers and even the hunters can't use horse inside the forest and easily lose their sense of direction. Meliodas added that even people used to traveling like hunters avoid the forest, so it will be perfect for hiding from the holy nights. While they are trying to look for the sins, the princess is restless and wondering what happened because she just lost her underwear. Hork the pig is too scared that the monster might attack them if they mess around, and Meliodas makes fun of him and says that no one likes a paranoid piglet. Suddenly, many Hork appeared, and at the same time, they said who the paranoid piglet was. Hork was surprised by what was happening, is everywhere, and he didn't know what to do. They're all standing together looking at each other, so Hork also got confused since he is looking at a mirror. Meliodas and Elizabeth were shocked and thought that those were the monsters of the forest. They both agreed that the monster thing is pretty crazy. All the clone of Hork walks towards Meliodas, claiming that they are the real Hawk. The monsters of the forest are trying to deceive them, and they can't figure out who is the real Hork. The Hork clones are starting to fight each other, claiming they are the real ones. Princess Elizabeth asked Meliodas to do something about it. In the blink of an eye, Meliodas swiftly knocked down most of the clones of Hork, so Princess Elizabeth was shocked at the action of Meliodas. The Hork clone says that Meliodas doesn't have any mercy. The one left ran towards Elizabeth and hid to complain about the action of Meliodas. Elizabeth was surprised as Hork walked towards her and insisted to the princess that his mama doesn't hit him, so the princess tried to comfort Hork. However, Princess Elizabeth screamed because she was shocked by what she saw. Just like what happened to Hork, many clones of Elizabeth started to appear, so the princess was stuck and didn't know what to do. Meliodas and Hork are now confused about who the real Elizabeth is. Elizabeth is now looking at the mirror version of herself. The clones of the princess started to move and surround the princess together with Meliodas and Hork. There's a lot of Princess Elizabeth, and Tai are all claiming that they are the real Princess Elizabeth, just like what Hork's clones did before. They are also acting like they are fighting with each other to prove that they are the real princess, so it became harder to distinguish who is the real princess. The clones look and act like real. They are now walking and moving. Meliodas started to think about fun things to do after what happened, which was not a good idea. Some of the clones shouted, "Leave the forest," and "Go away, human." Princess Elizabeth doesn't know what to do, as she is surrounded by her clones. The clones start walking towards Meliodas and Hork while the two are thinking about what to do, because they can identify which of them is the real one. The clones started grabbing Meliodas, and he was surprised by the clones' action. He dodges the clones quickly, and the monsters of the forest are surprised at how quickly Meliodas moves. In a snap, Meliodas travels behind the clones of Princess Elizabeth. So the clones start trying to convince Meliodas again that they are the real ones, so Meliodas thinks fast and drops Hork to the ground as he sees that he caught the attention of the clones. The clones are starting to mimic the voice of the princess again and fight each other to show that they are the real one. The clones say that they will do everything just to convince Meliodas. So Meliodas smiles and asks the clones of Princess Elizabeth to do exactly whatever he wants so they can convince him. He started asking the clones to raise their right hand up, then put the left hand on their cheek, and he continued to ask the clones to do funny things like saying his name with embarrassed face. Meliodas also asked the clones to do silly things that make him laugh. Meliodas enjoys the view and what he's doing, so Hork interrupts him and asks him to take it seriously. The two were fighting over what to do with the situation. However, the clones continue to follow what Meliodas asks them to do while walking towards the two. Princess Elizabeth, the real one, doesn't know what to do because he's still surrounded by her clones. The other clones said that you will not pass through here, and Meliodas noticed some of the other clones' actions. So Meliodas thinks again about another task for the clones. He insists that it will be the last test for them to convince him that they are the real princess. Meliodas asks the clones to jump as high as they can while pointing his index finger upward. In unison, all the clones jump so high, and there's only one that didn't jump and just sits on the ground. It's Elizabeth. She apologized that she couldn't do that because she lost her underwear while they were walking. As Meliodas figures out who the real Elizabeth is, he pulls his sword from his back and attacks all the clones who jumped. The clones were surprised and couldn't dodge the attack of Meliodas since they were in midair. Princess Elizabeth is on the ground holding her skirt. Meliodas swiftly attacked all the jumping clones without hitting the one and only Princess Elizabeth, who is sitting on the ground. Hork was stunned by what he saw as Meliodas dashed towards the 100 of Princess Elizabeth. In the blink of an eye, the clones of the princess who was attacked by Meliodas started to stumble and fly. Each clone that was hit by Meliodas and dropped to the floor transformed into a monster with a cloak and ran away. They just noticed that those monsters are the hide-and-seekers that pull pranks and serve as the monsters of the forest. Hork is very angry with the monster who is now running because they are terrified on the attack that Meliodas unleashed. After Meliodas defeated the hide-and-seek monsters, the monsters ran, and they decided to chase those monsters because it must be running back to something. However, before Meliodas runs, he gives back Princess Elizabeth's underwear and chases the monsters without explaining to the princess. The princess already had her hunch that it was Meliodas who stole her underwear, but she was still shocked and couldn't believe how she lost it. All the hide-and-seek monsters started to jump and run in one direction. Then the three of them started running and chasing the monsters. They follow the monsters, and as they get near and catch up to the monsters, they see a girl. The girl they saw is sleeping soundly. They thought that the monsters would attack the girl, so they ran faster. Hork and Princess Elizabeth speed up to help the girl from monsters. As they caught up with the monsters, they were amazed that it was a giant girl with a snake tattoo. The monsters stop running and hide behind the giant. Hork and Princess Elizabeth were shocked to see the actions of monsters. The hide-and-seek monsters are trying to wake up the girl and asking for forgiveness because the monster taught that they allowed a holy knight to come through the forest. They even called the giant girl Lord Diane. The monsters are terrified and screaming. The hide-and-seek continues to wake up the young giant girl, and they are still asking for forgiveness because they are being followed by Meliodas. The monsters taught that Meliodas, Hork, and Elizabeth are holy knights from the kingdom who are looking for the legendary 7 deadly sins. The giant opened her eyes and started to move. Her eyes met Hork, Meliodas, and the princess. The hide-and-seek monster started to move around and run away from the giant girl. Hork and Princess Elizabeth were confused about what to do as they saw the eyes of the giant girl open. Princess Elizabeth started to explain that they are not holy knights, and the giant girl got it wrong, while Hork is still amazed at how huge the giant is. The two of them were moved by the force of the giant, who move in front of them. The giant stands up effortlessly and quickly grabs Meliodas. The giant's movements are so skillful and fast that even the princess thought that Meliodas had just disappeared, but they are shocked to see that Meliodas was already held by the giant. Hork noticed that Meliodas is above them in the hand of the giant. The giant started to check if Meliodas is a holy knight. Hork and the princess started shouting to the giant to let Meliodas go. They thought that the giant would eat Meliodas alive. They caught the attention of the giant girl, so it looked at them and tried to understand what they were trying to say. The giant was shocked when she heard the name Meliodas, so she stared at Meliodas to check the face of the human she had just grabbed. The giant girl is trying to remember the face of Meliodas. The giant brought her face closer to Meliodas to see his face. She questioned Meliodas if is the real Meliodas, so Meliodas replied to her that it's been 10 long years. After Meliodas says hi to the giant and calls her name, the confusion on the giant's face vanishes. The giant's name is Diane, who is a member of the 7 deadly sins. Diane is so happy to see their captain alive, and she even thinks that she's daydreaming because she longs for that moment. Diane continues to rub Meliodas and hug their captain because she hasn't seen the captain for more than a year. Hork and Elizabeth were surprised that Diane, the serpent sin of envy, is now standing in front of them. Hork and the princess didn't know that one of the 7 deadly sins is a giant, so they were surprised to see the reunion of the 2 members of the sins. Diane taught that Meliodas bring Hork to her because their captain knows that she loves whole roasted pig, so Hork panicked and was surprised by what he heard. Hork insists that he is not a pig for food. The serpent sin of envy noticed Elizabeth, and she's trying to figure out who Elizabeth is and why she's with Meliodas. Diane asked Meliodas, "Who's that girl?" Princess Elizabeth happily introduced herself to the giant and explained that she was traveling with Meliodas and Hork together. Meliodas confirmed to Diane what Elizabeth had just explained. However, Diane got it wrong. Diane asked Princess Elizabeth again if the princess travels alone with their captain, and the princess proudly says yes. Diane looked at Meliodas, so Meliodas tries to start explaining to Diane. However, before Meliodas tries to finish his explanation, Diane raises him above the giant's head. The sin of envy, Diane, taught that the captain is a cheater and spending his time alone with Elizabeth and a pig. Diane started to tighten her grip on Meliodas, then she took out her anger on Meliodas by throwing him to the ground in full force. Meliodas hits the floor, and it causes an explosion, causing the ground to shatter. Elizabeth and Hork watch Meliodas hits the ground, and they are blown away by the explosion from the ground. The 2 are surprised at what happened, and are trying to analyze why Diane hit their captain, and shouted that the captain is a cheater. The giant began to lose his temper, and continued hitting the ground together with Meliodas. Hork and Diane are still watching the 2 sins. Diane, the serpent sin of envy, likes their captain, and she thought that Meliodas brought Elizabeth as his woman, so it made Diane heartbroken as they reunite with each other. Diane added that Meliodas scarred her woman's heart, then she asked Meliodas to give her any excuses to say. So Meliodas tries to stand up and explain that she doesn't need an excuse about the situation. However, before Meliodas finishes his statement, Diane, the sin of envy, continues to hit Meliodas, not letting him explain, even though she asks the captain to explain or provide any excuse. She's so furious and shouting while hitting their captain. She doesn't want to hear any excuses from the captain and continues punching the ground where Meliodas is. However, Meliodas managed to explain while receiving all the punches from Diane. The dragon's sin of wrath, Meliodas, finished explaining but received bruises. He explained to Diane that he is traveling with Princess Elizabeth to find the 7 sins to stop the Holy Knights. The princess was scared of how strong the giant was, so she hid behind Meliodas. Meliodas added that Diane just got ahead of herself and went out of control for nothing. Diane apologized to Meliodas, and she is so embarrassed by what she has done. Elizabeth and Hork were stunned and amazed by the giant's power and action. Hork is also surprised that it's just a little misunderstanding for the giant, who would have almost killed Meliodas. Diane is so jealous because she likes their Captain Meliodas. The serpent's sin of envy, Diane, kneels down and asks Elizabeth directly if the princess has a romantic relationship with their captain, and the princess just answers that they don't have that kind of relationship. Diane was relieved by what she heard, but got mad when Meliodas said that he and Diane don't have a romantic relationship either. Diane clarifies that the captain is lending his strength to the princess to go look for the sins. Meliodas just answered that he wants to ask something of the 7 deadly sins, and he needs the help of the other sins to defeat the Holy Knight. Out of nowhere, Meliodas asks Diane about what happened 10 years ago when they were summoned by the great Holy Knight because he can't remember anything about it. Diane is not sure what to say to their captain and is trying to remember everything that happened when they were together 10 years ago. Meliodas added that he lost his memory from that day, and they were all shocked to hear that. Everyone was shocked by what they heard from the captain of the 7 deadly sins. Since Diane can't believe that their captain lost his memory, she asks Meliodas again. Meliodas just started telling the story of how he remembered it. 10 years ago, the 7 deadly sins were summoned to an old castle on the outskirts of town. As Meliodas remembers it, they are from a mission, and they just got back. The town is busy preparing for something. As Meliodas continues the story, he remembers that the great Holy Knight said that he would discuss an important matter with the 7 of them. On that very day is the National Foundation Festival, and instead of drinking, they were being summoned, so they are so confused about what will happen. While on their way, they are arguing whether the great Holy Knight will reward them for defeating the Troll Queen or scold them for breaking the great Druid altar. They continue walking while teasing each other. However, Meliodas, as their captain, is too focused on going to the festival after either getting a reward or a scolding. Meliodas and Diane just remove their armored helmet while the others are still wearing their whole head and body armor. Suddenly, they reach the room, but they are all shocked as they enter the great Holy Knight's room. The 7 of them saw with their own eyes that the great Holy Knight was hung on the wall of the room and stabbed with swords and spears. Blood is everywhere, and the walls are full of holes, meaning that a powerful attack was unleashed on the great Holy Knight to cause that damage to the room and the great Holy Knight. The great Holy Knight was killed, and they couldn't move because of what they saw. Meliodas was stunned, and examining the situation, he didn't know what to do as they saw the great Holy Knight in that kind of situation. Each body part of the great Holy Knight was stabbed, and his blood flowed to the ground. They are trying to analyze why the great Holy Knight was targeted and who skewered him on the wall. The 7 deadly sins are so mad on what happened because for a holy knight that are vital guardian of the kingdom like entities, killing the great Holy Knight is equivalent to treason. The 7 of them are wondering who would do that kind of thing to the great Holy Knight. Suddenly, the 7 of them were shocked to sense the 300 holy knights surrounding them. The stomp of the metallic boots of the holy knights can be heard inside the room of the great Holy Knight. Meliodas, as their captain, is trying to think calmly about how they can escape that kind of situation because the holy knights might think that they are the ones who killed the great Holy Knight. The 7 deadly sins are on a bad and unlucky day at that time. They just realize that they are being surrounded by the holy knights of the kingdom. The holy knights outside are shouting and asking them to surrender. The holy knights outside started to move, positioning themselves to surround the 7 deadly sins and prepare for battle. The holy knights started to attack them, and the building started to take damage and slowly fall down. If they stay inside the building, they might get hurt from the attack of a holy knight outside, so Meliodas, as the captain, commands the other members of the 7 deadly sins to disperse and regroup so they can discuss what happened in a safer place. Meliodas really doesn't know what's going on because it looks like everything that happened was planned by someone. Suddenly, a shadow of someone appeared behind Meliodas, and it was too late before he noticed it and dodged it. What Meliodas only heard was a whisper saying, "Captain, I'm sorry." Then he blacked out and doesn't remember anything. Meliodas doesn't know what happened to the other members of the 7 deadly sins or with the other holy knights attacking them. Princess Elizabeth was shocked to hear the side of the story that Meliodas remembered. Meliodas continues telling what happened and what he remembers. When he woke up after he had blacked out, he was lying in a hole somewhere and met Hork. Meliodas only remembers the last word he heard was calling him captain, so he thought that it might be one of the members of the 7 deadly sins. Princess Elizabeth just realized that the 7 deadly sins were framed for the murder of the great holy knight, while Diane thinks that one of the 7 sins is a traitor. However, Meliodas insists and wants to know what happened back then. Out of madness, Diane punches the ground, causing Hork to fly. With that, Diane, the serpent's sin of envy, promised Meliodas, their captain, that she would lend her strength to help. All of them are now wondering what's true behind what happened 10 years ago. Diane started to stand up and introduced herself as the serpent's sin of envy. She will do her best and lend his strength to help Meliodas, no matter what happens. The princess and Meliodas are happy with Diane's decision, but the sin of envy clarifies that the only reason she's helping is because of the captain. Since Diane has now decided to go with Meliodas and the others, the hide-and-seek is now relieved because they were threatened by Diane for the last 10 years that she would go on a rampage if they did not help her hide. Now the monsters of the forest can live in peace without being terrified of the presence of Diane, the serpent's sin of envy. While they're getting ready to go, a rain cloud and thunder started to circulate above them, and the wind blows in their direction. It looks like the storm is coming, because even Hork smells rain clouds. The trees and plants started to sway because of the wind, and Meliodas asked the other to look up because of what he noticed. The 3 of them looked up and saw a gigantic thundercloud, and it was very dark. The fog in the white forest vanished, and the thunder from the clouds started to light up the surroundings. Loud and huge thunder clouds are terrifying the monsters of the forest and make them run. The powerful thunder started to hit the ground. In a snap, a thunderbolt was released from the dark clouds above them, and Meliodas was caught by it. As Meliodas opened his eyes, a thunder-like rope magic was surrounding his body, and he was wondering who had done this to him. The thunder from the cloud captured each one of them. It became a rope-like thunder tied on them and started to paralyze their body. Hork and Princess Elizabeth can't move their body because of the paralyzing effect of the magic of the thunder. However, Diane was captured and failed to avoid the rope-like thunder as she tried to help the captain. She was focused on protecting Meliodas and failed to see the incoming danger to her. Meliodas and Diane try to analyze the situation and check what the rope-like thunder is. The princess fell to the ground, and the 2 members of the 7 deadly sins are still standing, looking at the person coming towards them. It's Gilthunder, one of the holy knights. He is so pleased to meet Diane and Meliodas of the 7 deadly sins. What might happen to our heroes? Who is Gilthunder, and how powerful is he as a holy knight? Stay tuned for the next episodes. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. If you like the story and want to get notified for more stories and episodes, please hit the bell button and share it with your friends. Thanks.